Welcome to this Radius Desk hosted video on user management. So what is a user? A user is anybody or any device that joins the network via a captive portal. So here we are on the user management screen. Let's look at these top tabs. We have permanent users, we have vouchers, and we have activity monitor. On the next layer of tabs we have refresh the screen, add a permanent user, delete a permanent user, edit, add notes, download a CSV file. We can download all the details of multiple users to a CSV file for use in an external program. We can change the password of a user, enable or disable the user, test radius. This makes sure that the radius server recognizes the user. We have graphs of the user's activity, and we have bring your own device. Let's look at these last two for a moment in a little more detail. The graphs output the usage of the user. You can see that there is no daily usage on this particular user, so let's look at the monthly usage. And here we are, we can see the data in and data out of that particular user during the month by date. Let's look at bring your own device, and you can see here that this user has 4 MAC addresses associated with it. Because these MAC addresses are recognized by the server, none of these MAC addresses will need to log in now they're already registered. It's easy to add a MAC address, and so for example this could be a printer, and the printer would not have to log in, it would be automatically logged in. So that is very quickly bring your own device. So let's go ahead and add a user. We're going to add a permanent user to an admin called Client1. It's worth noting here that Radius Desk Hosted is a multi-level system. So here, because we're logged in as root, we can see all of the admins below us. And you will note that Client1 is an admin below Admin1. So Admin1 can control Client1. And of course, as root, we can control all of the admins below us. So here we are on the add user screen. You can create multiple users. The owner of this particular permanent user is Client1, which is filled in for us. We now can add a username and a password. And from the drop-down boxes, we select the realm and the profile. Remember, the profile is what the user can actually do on the system in terms of download. We can also make details of personal info if required. This is not necessary, but if you are tracking the user, this is the place to put the information. You can activate the user or disable the user, and you can actually anticipate when a user will be using the system and put in dates for when they can be active. You can add SSIDs that the user can log in from, and there are 2 optional fields available for use for whatever you want to use against the personal user. Also here you'll see that we have auto add device after authentication. We'll briefly explain what that does now. What does auto add device after authentication actually do? If you select this box, then once the permanent user has logged in, his MAC address will be added to the bring your own device list. So after the first login, there will be no requirement to log in again. You won't actually see the login page, but the system will log you in automatically by identification of your MAC address. So just to summarize adding a permanent user, as always in Radius Desk Hosted, there are a lot of options and the system is very flexible. But adding a user is very straightforward in real terms. All you need to do is add a username, a password, select a realm, select a profile, and the user can be created. All of the other additional information can be added if necessary, but is not required. So let's look at vouchers. We'll see that the voucher tabs are very similar to the permanent user tabs: add, delete, edit, but in addition we have the export to PDF. Now if we select that particular tab, we can now print our vouchers in various formats. So let's go ahead and do that. And we can see that the vouchers, that we only had 3 vouchers listed from 2 different admins, and you can see they've been put on different pages. As well as PDF, we can export our vouchers via CSV. We can email them, we can change the password, we can test the radius, and as before on permanent users, we can produce. So when we add a voucher, we get 3 options: single field, username and password, or import CSV list. Single field is what it says. You just get a single username with no password. Username and password is equivalent to a permanent user. You have a voucher name and a voucher password. And the third option is you can import a CSV file if you have vouchers created in an external system. Well, let's start creating a voucher. As you can see, we're logged in as root, so we have availability to all of our admins. We've selected client 1. We need to add a realm and a profile just like the permanent user, but we also get the option of how many. And if we put multiple vouchers, then we can identify the batch with a batch name. Activate and expire. There are various options here. You can activate on first login, which means that once a user is logged in, then they have a set amount of time after first login when they can use the voucher. Here we've set it for 7 days, and with that ticked, it never expires. With it unticked, you can set a date for when the ticket will actually expire. Here we can connect the voucher from just certain SSIDs, and we have 2 extra field names to use for whatever. So let's look at the activity monitor. The activity monitor shows by user the information on when the user logged in and when the user authenticated. Normally it's the accounting data that we're interested in, but we also do have the authentication data. As looking at the accounting data, just a reminder of how the lists work in Radius Desk Hosted. We can filter the list. So in this case we'll filter on 910, and we see that now we're only showing usernames that contain 910. We can also filter by time. If we filter on time, we have a before date, an after date, or an on date. We can also export this information to CSV. We can create a usage graph, or we can close the session of a particular user, which means they'll be bumped off the system. So that's covered the activity monitor, and hopefully during this brief tutorial we've covered permanent users, vouchers, and the activity monitor. Thanks very much.